So a vision is a concept. Actually, the idea of doing visioning actually, interestingly, started at U of M in the late 50s and 60s with a guy named Ron Lippitt, who passed away in the early 80s, I think. And he did a lot of pioneering work around sort of working with groups and monitoring people's energy levels in the groups. And what they found was that when people, I'll pass the book around too in case you get bored with what I'm talking about. So when people, they would present people in businesses with like sort of traditional problem solving, like here's what's going on, what should we do? And then they would like watch their energy and attention level, and every time it just would like go down. The more they worked on the problem solving, people got more and more discouraged because we've all been in, I don't know about you, most people have been in those meetings. So Wayne goes, let's do this, and then I go, oh, I don't know, that might not work, and what about this? Have you thought about that? And then pretty soon every idea that anybody brings up, somebody has some counterbalancing question, all of which are valid, but you never really go anywhere. Do you have anybody been in a meeting like that? It's very frustrating and it's very discouraging, especially for the people who have the creative solutions, which are often the minority, who are then told by the majority all the 59,000 somewhat valid reasons why it won't work. So visioning, they called it preferred futuring, so we call it visioning. But what they did was they like pushed people to go out into the future, whatever a point in time that was far enough removed from the present, and they were just like, forget the present. Describe what you want the future to look like. It's kind of irrelevant where you are now. Just describe what it's like when things are working really well in the future. Okay, does this make sense? And what they found when they did that is, of course, people's energy levels went up because they weren't being dissed about what could or couldn't happen, because it's kind of irrelevant unless it's completely, out of the question, like we're going to land on Mars and breathe free air probably won't happen. But beyond that, you can really, 10 years out, almost anything could happen. And so people's energy level went up, the creativity level went up, the engagement went up, the involvement went up. So we call it visioning, they call it preferred futuring. And so really everything that we do, whether it's 2020, which I'll tell you the specific answer in a second, or anything else, we always start with what the vision of success looks like, not with what's going on now. So like every project, every whatever, really a job description is like a year down the road when the job's being done really well and you're in it, what's it look like? If we have a new product a year down the road, what's it look like? If we're rolling out a new Zing Train seminar, what's it look like? And everybody, we use it at every level, so it's not just sort of broad organizational stuff. Is that making sense? So it's not a strategic plan. Totally not a strategic plan. Strategic plan is how you get from where you are to the vision, but they're two completely different things. And the challenge in my mind always is, how does everybody write strategic plans but they don't have agreement on the vision? If you know what I'm saying. So it's a lot of charting course, but we haven't agreed on where we're going to end up. And so for us, it's about where we're going to end up and what we believe in and what gets us excited and what we want to do, so that when we get to, in this case, the year 2020 as an organization, what's going on. Okay, so did I answer that? So that was a question you didn't answer, but that's the preface to your question. So in 82, when we opened, we didn't call it a vision, but we had a pretty clear vision of what we wanted to do. And we knew that we wanted the one deli, and we wanted a really unique place with great food and great service and a great place to work. And we got to a point sort of in the early 90s. Is this in the case study? Okay, so you're familiar with it. So we got to the point early in 90s where we, I equate it to organizational midlife or to finishing the MBA program. And then you don't know what you're going to do next, even though you've made a huge progress and you've achieved this really difficult thing, which it is to get an MBA or to get out of whatever in your life and achieve. And then it's sort of like, what are you going to do next? And so for us, that challenge was, we had filled in all the space physically, much to Ryan's frustration. We didn't have anywhere to expand, really. We still wanted to grow, but our commitment was to only have this one deli. What were we going to do? And so we spent about a year writing the 2009 vision, which you probably read in there. So 2006, we got to the point where it became clear that we were sort of obviously going to pretty soon arrive at 2009. And then when we did our short-term planning, it was going to supersede the long-term plan, which only went to 2009. So in 06, we started the work to write the next one. And we spent about a year writing that. And then or 9 months drafting it, and then rolled it out to the rest of the organization as a draft, and then spent about 6 months getting input from over 200 and something people in the organization, rewriting it, and then finished it in like May of '07. So main key points of it. And we could get this for people too I can send it to you on email or whatever. And you can, but the number one thing is just, it talks about leaving our world better than we found it. And we spent a lot of time sort of going over our world versus the world. We decided on our, because the was a little big. So what that means to me, to us really, it's just, I kind of always go back to a story that happened like in the mid to late 90s. I went to Washington, D.C., and I went to a conference that was on organic agriculture, which at that time was not quite as, like Dole wasn't, active in organic agriculture back in 97 or whatever. And they had a panel of growers who presented on organics, and, one of the many people in the audience did what, you would do, which is he raised his hand for questions when they got to that, and he said, I don't mind paying like 10% more at the cash register for organics, but how can you justify charging double? And, one of the growers, who I have no recollection of who it was, but he had this answer, which has always stuck with me. He just said, when you get to the register and you pay for the industrial or commercially produced stuff, you aren't really paying the full price. Because later you're going to pay for cleanup, you're going to pay for soil restoration, you're going to pay for health issues, et cetera, et cetera. So the price tag on the produce is really not reflective of what it really is going to cost you in the whole picture. When you pay for organic produce, which now would refer to as sustainable, less than just the label organic, but when you buy sustainable produce, you are paying the full price because the grower always leaves the soil in at least as good and usually better condition than he or she started with. And so for us, it's just taking that same model and applying it not just to the soil, but to the people who work with us, so that when they leave working with us, they're better for having worked, that the suppliers that we buy from are better for us having bought from us. Obviously, the customers should be better off than before they bought from us, that the environment, the community at large, et cetera, everybody is doing better, even if it was somebody who's coming to work now for mail order for 6 weeks, or somebody who's there for 6 years or 16 years, whatever. Okay, so that's like the number one point. You want me to keep going? There's 9. Okay, so the second element of it is basically true to the 2009 vision. This time it says, I think we're going to have 12 to 18 Zingerman's businesses, again, all in the Ann Arbor area. Again, each has to have its own unique specialty because we don't like to replicate things. Each with managing partners in it that are running it, in the same way that we have now, just a little bit bigger. But the key of the vision is like 12 to 18 is a range, but it's not 180, and it's not 4. So like, honestly, I don't care if it's 11 or 19 or 17, but the point is that you have some sense of scale, because part of what visioning does in the process of doing the vision, it's sort of implicit, but you end up defining what you aren't going to do. And 12 to 18 gives you some sense of what the organization will look like in 2020, and it's not going to be 300 units. Okay. The third point and the fourth point says radically better food and radically better service. By the way, does anybody know the linguistic origin of the word radical? No one? Those little pink things that grow in the ground that you buy at the farmer's market? Yeah. That's what it comes from. So radici in Italian means roots. So people don't realize this, but radical actually means back to the roots. It's an interesting thing. So for us, food is always about traditional food, so it is really pushing ever further back to the way things used to be made in the spirit of better flavor and better food overall. So radically better food and service. When I teach this, and I'm actually teaching it Friday again at the new staff orientation, but I just say to people, it's like I have learned to have enormous appreciation for everything that we've achieved over whatever it is, 27 3/4 years now. But it's really important for them to understand that coming in now, our responsibility, me and them included, is to take everything that's been achieved and raise the bar way, way, way higher, so that when we get to 2020, we're going to almost look back and be embarrassed about what we were doing now. In a caring and supportive way, but no, that there's just like, the bread that we sold when we opened the deli, the rye bread, which we used to buy from a bakery in Oak Park, we used to drive in there every day to pick it up for 10 years because they wouldn't deliver. And we had driven all over, and there was 30 bakeries, 29 of whom probably delivered, but the one we liked wouldn't deliver. That bread now is so poor in comparison to what we bake at the bakehouse, I would be embarrassed. But at the time, it was like a destination item for people coming to buy. So in the same way, you just keep raising the bar and looking back. So food and service way better. Fifth thing is radically better finance. And so the key word is finance, not profit. So profit's one, as you know, hopefully, one element of financial health, but it means reasonable savings. It means that you got reasonable cash flow. It means that the people who work in the organization have financial health also. And so out of that, we started teaching classes for people on like how to buy a house and working with them on how to manage their savings and all that stuff, because we had this sort of belated glimpse of the obvious that it was sort of stupid for us to let them manage our money when they didn't know how to manage their own. So creating really a sustainable model for business. And that's really one of the big things for me is about sustainable business. I think that people don't realize, you might because you're working in it, but people don't realize how hard it is to stay in business, and that it's really easy to go out of business, and that the abnormal exception is the one who stays in business for a long time. That people act like it's weird when companies close, but I really kind of realize it's actually way easier to close and fail. It's really hard not to fail, and that the trick in our minds is to stay in business and stay healthy for many, many, many years. And so like the Pfizer thing of coming, does anybody work for Pfizer? I'm not really picking on them, but it's just, the thing of coming here and getting this big tax break and then leaving because it's no longer convenient to be here is up to them. But what we want to do is actually stay in business for a long time and not try to sort of strip mine out and get out of here. It's more about how do we create a sustainable model where everybody's winning. Let's see, sixth thing would be, what's the sixth thing? Intentional technology. So we sort of historically, culturally in our organization, I would say are somewhat biased against technology just because our whole focus on traditional food, and typically in the 20th century, technology was used to sort of dumb down the quality of the food. So that was a big departure really in the vision from what we had done previously. Not that we were intellectually opposed to it, but it was to really own up front that we were going to actively go out and find sort of time-tested, not really cutting edge, but time-tested technologies that would help the customer experience be better, or the staff experience be better, or whatever. Let's see, what else? Being a learning destination, educational destination is a really big piece to us. So that Zing Train, it's the teaching classes at the bakehouse, it's all of that. We really wanted people coming to work with us that want to learn, people coming to study with us through the seminars that want to learn. Eighth thing is having fun. We're going to be having, I believe it says 380% more fun in 2020 than we were in 06 when we wrote it. And everybody wants to know how you're going to measure, and I'm like, that should be the most difficult problem I got, is how to measure the fun. And then the last one talks about opportunity and responsibility for everybody. Opportunity was written into the 2009 vision, and we've always been super committed to the people in the organization that if they had some vision of what they wanted to do that was compatible with ours, that we would help them get there. So that's still true. Added the responsibility piece because I guess for me that I sort of realized more and more that opportunity is very passive, and I don't really like that. And so empowerment is a nice buzzword, but it's so passive because it doesn't actually mean you do anything. It just means if you feel like doing something, you could, which is way better than enslavement. No, it's true. So it's a step up. But we realize it's not enough for us just that people could do something. We actually expect they're going to do something. And so it's sort of like you're in this room sitting here and you have all these nice doors or windows you could go out of. So empowerment implies you could go out. Responsibility means you're going to pick the right one for you, which is different if you got 4 kids and you're a single parent working 3 jobs, is different than if you are on a path to become a partner. But the point is there's a lot of options, but you got to take responsibility for your own career development and for making something great happen, whether that's 6 hours a week or 60 hours a week or whatever you're going to do.